everyone. Welcome to the Sports Wave Network and Sports Corner with the Conn Man. I am your host, the Conn Man. With me this evening, I have a very special guest, my good friend, Mike Semiao. Mike, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well, Michael. How are you? Great to see you.
Great to see you as well, folks. We had a couple of minor technical difficulties. My fault, but I'm glad Mike took the time to come on my show, so we're going to do it. We're going to do it right. Mike, for those people who may or may not know about you, talk a little bit about yourself, because we got a lot to cover tonight. So let the viewers know a little bit about you.
Well, I thought I had on my schedule we're going 2 hours tonight. Didn't I have that right?
I thought four. We didn't have them days tonight. We might have done four. Go ahead.
So I grew up in Acushnet, Massachusetts, a suburb of New Bedford. As a young person, I had some early athletic success. Played at a couple of different high schools throughout the area. Played in college. My profession, I'm a healthcare consultant. I help healthcare organizations financially to right themselves and so they can treat more patients and see more patients over time. So that's a little bit about me.
That is fantastic. You know, before we get any further, see you what you did, and I gotta step in here, folks. Mike was one of the most outstanding individuals coming out of this area at a young age, and we all knew about him. He was younger, but we all knew about him. And here's where I want to go before we go into the book. You know, you were a star in your area, but when you decided to go to Holy Family, now, folks, for those of you who don't know, Holy Family was a very reputable high school, fantastic history, fantastic coach, some of the best players to ever come out of Holy Family. You know, they won a state championship with a guy by the name of Stephen Gomes and had a guy by the name of Paul Walsh at the guard. Stevie was only a freshman. And then after that, they had the great Mickey Gonzalez. The reason why I'm bringing this up, folks, is because Mike Semiao's coming into the Holy Family. Did you feel any pressure knowing where you're going and what you're going to be following?
I did. I learned that history from my father. And when we were talking about, when I was in junior high school, about, sort of what's the next steps. And Holy Family was at the top of the list, right? I wanted to be part of that history. I wanted to win the state championship there. I really wanted. I wanted to play for Jack Nabriga. I really wanted to be coached, and so that was really in my forefront of my mind as I was approaching that school. But Michael, I had a pretty large learning curve, even with my success as a junior high school player, approaching that school and approaching that team, that philosophy. I had a lot to learn, and I worked really hard that previous summer with just essentially really just trying to get in great shape, try to be the best athlete that I could going in, and really try to work on my skill set on my own and at camps and just different things. And one other story here is that it's in the book, I believe, that when I was in junior high school, I got invited to practice with them as an 8th grader. And so that was a big deal. That was a big deal. I didn't know anybody else that was going through that. And Mr. Nabriga threw me in, and all I did was play defense. And all he did was yell at me. And I'm not even a student yet. I'm not a player on the roster, but he pushed me pretty hard right away. And that's what I wanted. I wanted that. I wanted to learn. I wanted to know what I needed to learn. I mean, I knew I could score. I knew I could do those things. But even at that, Michael, I still had to improve. I had to become more efficient on that because I just knew how he played. I knew the style they had, which was, they're not running up and down the court. Everything is half court. Everything is man-to-man defense. Michael, we had long practices every day with that team, and we ran sprints every day. It didn't matter if you played the night before, you were running sprints. And our practices, Mike, were always half court. We never practiced full court. We never scrimmaged full court. So the starting five one day would play offense for the entire practice. And you would think, oh, that's great. We're going to do that for the entire practice. I'll tell you, man, that's a lot of stress. That's a lot of strategy. It's not continuous, right? Because it's a lot of stops and starts, a lot of instruction that's going on. Michael, then the next day, the starting five, and I was lucky enough to be part of the starting five, you play defense all practice. So that's how he ran his practices. And it was, very old school. Mr. Nabriga would show up in his suit coming out of the housing authority and, just kind of walk us through this stuff. So it was you knew every day what was going to go on because it wasn't any mystery. You're going to work hard in half court stuff. You're going to run sprints. You're going to shoot foul shots. And that was your practice. That was a very tough practice. And it was eye-opening for me just because of the fact of I was coming from a junior high school. I just didn't have any real understanding to this stuff. But that's what I wanted. I wanted to be pushed hard, and he pushed me hard. And on top of everything, Michael, he gave me a chance. Right? That's all I asked. I didn't ask for any special treatment. I just wanted to prove myself. And he doesn't start me the first game. I don't go into the first game until probably 3 minutes left in the first half. But Michael, I never come out of a game again. From that point forward, I'm there. I proved myself in a real short period of time when he put me in the first game. And I think he was probably a little bit hesitant to start me because he didn't want to have that kind of pressure on me. But, so I understood that. And I didn't back down. I knew where I was. I knew how hard I was working and how I wanted our team to look. I thought our team had some potential there. It didn't work out in the end. But, again, Mr. Nabriga pushed me hard. He pushed our team pretty hard, too, because we were a pretty young team. We had two seniors that were leaving, but David Lato was there and Jimmy Colbert was there, and they were juniors. So they were new to varsity experience, and I was brand new, of course. And so he didn't run that team long as far as I think we played 6 guys, maybe. But, yeah, he never took me off the floor after that. I played when we were getting beat bad. I played when we were way ahead. So seldom did he ever take me out, and I really appreciated that. On the other side, like coming out, I'm a much better player. When I go play for Jim Tavares in those tournaments that we've talked about in Waltham and Lexington,
we're going to talk about that.
I'm really a much better player. I'm a different player coming out after that season.
Now, Mike, you were highly regarded, well known. I know you felt pressure you put on yourself. Mm-hmm. Did you feel pressure from your peers?
I didn't, but I shouldn't say that. I guess I did because there was some odd things that were going on and sort of how I was being looked at. So one of the stories in the book is when I go practice with Holy Family, I don't know what anybody's looking at me, but they are. Like, what's he doing? What's he doing here? And you run into the situation where I think I mentioned this about someone approaching me and talking about minutes and talking about playing time. And that message got a little off. That wasn't really what I was saying. But yeah, there was some issues that were coming from my peers as far as how I was being looked at. And, I never chased publicity. That seemed like that was following me, and that was fine until it gets in the way, right? It got in the way of that team where I didn't want publicity. I wanted our team to have some publicity because we were playing well for a period of time, and I wanted all of us to be part of that. That's not how it worked out. And so I felt that. I felt that probably halfway through that season, and ultimately that's part of the decision making of why I transfer.
So how did you do the year before you ended up going to Fairhaven? Who was on your team at that time, by the way?
The Holy Family team?
Yes.
So it was myself, David Lato, Danny Afalo, Tony Thomas, and Jimmy Colbert. That was the starting 5. And Ricky Azevedo was the sixth man. So we were pretty good. We had a stretch there. The problem was, and this is kind of gets off on this, that the way I think I mentioned this to you in different conversations, the schedule that season, we played New Bedford High School twice in a week and a half. We got beat bad at home and we lost to them. So this is when they had the Christmas tournament. This was the last year of the Christmas tournament.
Yes.
It was at New Bedford High School, and we lost. We had New Bedford High School in the first round, and we lost to them in a close game. We should have beaten them that night. The problem was we didn't know how to beat them. We were too young. We were too inexperienced. We had them. We just had to make a couple of plays down the stretch, and our season's probably a little bit different. But all of a sudden, Michael, our first game we lost in double overtime. We lose bad to New Bedford High School in the second game. We lose to New Bedford High School in a tight game in the third game. We're 0-3.
Oh, jeez.
And we haven't played in two of those games. We probably should have won. We didn't play bad. But we come in third place in the Christmas tournament because we won 2 games in a row. But then after that, like, I think we won like 4 in a row after that tournament. But Durfee's sitting there. Durfee's that undefeated team with Ken Fiola and Kevin Whiting. They go undefeated and win the state championships. We had to play them twice. So, that winning percentage to get to the state tournament was still, I think, 14-6. Coming out of that tournament, we're 2-3. We have 3 losses. We don't have much room to play with, as far as how we're going to win. And our schedule that season, for whatever reason, was heavily weighted where there were a lot of home games at the Kennedy Center. And we beat some pretty good teams, and we beat them bad. So now we got to go play them at their place. And so they're waiting for us. They want revenge, and we're still a young team. And being a young team and me being a young player, we really didn't know how to play with stress. So when we got behind, we'd lose. We just didn't know how to really fight. We needed, as a group, another year together, and I think we would have been really good. And the other side of this, Mike, is, geez, we're playing Division I. So we're playing bigger schools. Our population doesn't really align to that.
No.
Right. So that success that Mickey's team had in 75 put us there. The next year after I transfer, our Holy Family drops to Division II, and they're pretty good. So that's just sort of the juxtaposition of that school and where I was. And yes, to answer your question, there was some peer pressure that I was feeling where I was getting some publicity off of our success, and I didn't think that was truly deserved. I wanted our team to be publicized and spoke about, because I thought we were pretty good for a period of time. We were, and unfortunately that comes back to me, and that was unfortunate.
It seems to me, because I'm trying to remember that team. Now I know Aflalo, his father played for the Denver Nuggets. I'm correct.
Yeah, his son did, yes.
His son. Yeah. All right, I got it back. But that was a very good team. And back then, folks, you had to win 72% of your games.
Yeah.
Now, all you got to do is go 500, and y'all in the tournament. Yeah. It was a lot tougher back then when we played. It was a lot better.
And we had, the front part of that schedule, we were pretty good. The back end of the schedule, we weren't good at all. We just, Danny hurt his hand. I think he missed the last 3 games. So, again, it didn't turn out well. It didn't turn out how I wanted, because I thought there was some potential there. But we needed to play well early, and we weren't ready for that yet. We just weren't ready to deal with those things, because we were a young team. We were a young team as far as varsity experience. The only varsity experience that came out of that was Tony Thomas, because he played on Mickey's team when he was, I think, a sophomore. So Tony had some experience, and he was our captain. But that's all we had. There was nobody else there.
Wow, I'm trying to remember that far back. I'm just trying to think. Again, you brought up that infamous team. I don't even like to say their name, but I will. Durfee. Yeah. The team that they had. You mentioned a guy who was my arch rival, Mr. Kevin Whiting. So, you guys had, that schedule was obviously very tough. New Bedford High.
Yeah, there were no nights off in Division I, right? There just wasn't, because those teams were all pretty good. Even the teams that had some losing records that were close to us, I think so, like Bishop Connolly, you had Billy on, and so we bump into that team at one point. I bumped into that team for 4 years, that school. So there were really no nights off. And very God-centric, as you would imagine. A couple of teams had some big guys, but it was a tough division. It was a tough schedule. I know Mr. Nebriga thought we could do more, but you can't start 0-3 and dig your way out of that, because there's no margin anymore.
Okay, Mike. Now you finish your year. You guys thought you were going to have a better year. Again, you started off 0-3. Season didn't go where you probably wanted it to go. So after the season's over, what made you decide to go to Fairhaven? And what feedback did you get during the process of you deciding you wanted to go to Fairhaven? And what did your teammates, because you already started, so what did your teammates feel about you going to Fairhaven?
One of the weird dynamics of me transferring, Michael, was when I made that decision, it was late in the following summer. I pushed it as far as I could push it because I didn't want to leave. Mr. Nebriga retired, and the coaching staff, Dennis Kennedy, who was the assistant coach and had played for Mr. Nebriga and had been part of at least one of those state tournament teams, state championship teams. He wasn't going to take the coaching job, the head coaching job. They would drop into Division II. Lots of discussions with my dad about this, about where I wanted to be, sort of what was going to help me as far as my career goes. And my dad had always seen me as a Division I player, playing the bigger schools, playing that tough schedule. There were a couple of summer league games that didn't go well, that I took some heat during those games from some of my teammates. I had gone to 5-star that summer, and Jimmy Hennessy was one of the kids I went with. So I got to know him a little bit. And we come out of that. It was early in the summer, a couple of bad situations in the summer league games with my teammates. And I said to my dad after one of those games, I said, I think I'm ready to move on. And he was already having some discussions because one of our neighbors on our street had played at Fairhaven High School in his career, knew Mr. Wilson, knew the AD, Mel Anton. So that conversation started to happen behind the scenes. And Michael, I didn't want to go. I was treated really well by the principal, Father Driscoll. You know all these people, right?
Yeah.
I loved the school. I loved the environment, but I just didn't see me there any longer. So the cutoff was pretty sharp. I never heard from anybody when I transferred. And the weird thing is, and I don't know how this got out as far as it being discussed, but so I go to 5-star early in the summer, then I go play for the youth games team. And there's an article in the newspaper which talks about me winning, that team winning the gold medal and me transferring.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So here's the odd thing is that, my relationships with the administration and Father Driscoll, Michael, I never hear from those people again. I don't. And it was weird for me. I'm a young kid, right? So there's pretty sensitive and running into some other stuff that's going on behind the scenes with me. So I was sort of hurt that I didn't hear from anyone. I said to my wife when we were launching the book, I said, I expected the phone to ring.
Right.
Not to try to talk me out of it, but just to say something.
Right.
Nobody said a word. I didn't hear from teammates. I didn't hear from anyone. The person I did hear from is one of the kids that was in junior high school with me in Acushnet. Gary Cathcart had come to Holy Family with me. Gary, hell of a baseball player, really good athlete. I heard from him. He called me and said, I understand what's going on. And so that was great to hear from him. Some of the friendships I had coming out of that, I still had in high school and beyond, which was great. But yeah, it was very strange not hearing anything from anyone. Now, the Fairhaven side, I don't have any really relationships. I have relationship with Jimmy a little bit coming out of camp. I knew Chucky Tillett from some other conversations at other times. So, but those guys were seniors, Mike. Those guys weren't worried about me as far as coming in and taking time. They were well established. They had been through that program for a while. They had some success already. From what I understand years later, they looked at it. They looked at me as a supplement. They're like, great, he's coming here. He's going to help us. And that's all I ever wanted to do. Now, apparently, there were some issues with some other players who were behind them that I was part of a conversation one time where someone asked me the same question. Did you feel like you were taking minutes away from people? I was like, no, I was given the same opportunity as they were. And some of these players were there before me, had every opportunity to establish themselves. If they haven't, that's not on me.
No, not at all.
But it was pointed at me that I took minutes, I did this, I did this, I did that. Okay. So those are the dynamics I had to deal with all the way through high school. So it's weird that, I'm in 8th grade, I don't have any real issues. My sophomore year with that Fairhaven group in 78, I don't have any issues. In 1980, I don't have any issues with anyone. So being the youngest created some of that dynamic. Having early success created that dynamic. I said this to someone else on a podcast one night that, by the time I go to Fairhaven, I've had 3-4 major articles in the newspaper. I don't know anybody else that did, and I'm not patting myself on the back.
Nobody did.
Right.
Nobody.
Right. So there's that weird thing that happens where this preconceived notion of me.
Mm-hmm.
And not to be overly dramatic about that, but that's what I was dealing with. I was dealing with other kids. We're all immature. We're all trying to find our way. And that comes back to me. You read that in the book. You saw that in the book. That was hard stuff to deal with, on top of, I'm still succeeding to a certain extent, which was bizarre for me to try to deal with.
So, okay, now you're at Fairhaven.
Mm-hmm.
You have a very good team. Talk about how good you guys were. You guys had a great team.
We did. So that team, the previous year, lost in the quarterfinals of the state tournament. Jimmy Hennessy got sick. He was the leading scorer in that division in southeastern Massachusetts. They were favored, I think, to actually win the state tournament in Division 2. So when I transferred, they were moving up to 1. So when Holy Family moved down, Fairhaven moved up. And so that was the juxtaposition as far as that goes. So now you're playing the same schedule, which I wanted. So we had an okay season. We finished 15-5. We were okay, right? We had tough losses to New Bedford High School and Durfee, and we had a bad loss to Attleboro. But when we got to the tournament, Michael, we played our best basketball all season. We beat Hyde Park and Jeremiah Burke. Hyde Park had been a champion in one of the divisions. Jeremiah Burke had won the City League. We beat Seekonk in the 3rd round, who had finished number 1 in Division 2 in Southeastern Mass. So they had a really good team. Michael, I forgot we were averaging something like in those first 4 games, I think like 77 points a game in the state tournament. Yeah. So we go to the state finals in 78 and we lose to Springfield Commerce, who was 2-time defending champ. They had a high school All-American in Mark Hall. We lost to them in a tough game. We had a chance there for a period of time to beat them. We just couldn't pull it off. We just sort of ran out of gas. But that was a great season for us. We finished the season 20-6, runner-up in the state tournament. That's the first success that school has had since the early 50s. As far as that success. So great team, great athletes on that team. I had not played with athletes like that before. And again, those guys had a lot of talent. They knew the system inside and out because they had been taught since they were like 10 years old, all the way back to the Livesey leagues coming through Fairhaven. And I have to jump in and get acclimated and learn all this stuff pretty quickly because I want to help. So that was that team. That was a great team.
It was, and the fact is, of course, we played Fairhaven. I never ran into you when I played, but you knew Fairhaven, they had some, we'll call them scoliones. They were real tough. You knew they're going to play hard. You had Chuck Tillett, really wasn't a basketball player, but he could play. He played real tough. You had Matt, you had a great team. You guys played together, and I was very impressed with you, the team that you had. And then you talked about Springfield Commerce. Folks, Mark Hall, unbelievable ball player. He was well known. I don't know, probably sophomore, freshman year. I don't know, going way back, but he was well known. And he was an outstanding talent. I don't know where he ended up going to college. I'm not.
He went to Minnesota.
That's correct. Yes, he did. That is correct. Now he brought back that thing to me. But yeah, so Springfield Commerce was definitely a good team with Marco. Okay, so now let's go further. Now you play, you guys go to the semifinals, runner up. Then what happens then?
So those guys graduate, right? So there are 7 of us who are getting the playing time during the 78 season. And there were 2 bench players who would come through with that group who don't ever get any playing time. But they're part of the next 5 when we're in practice and when we're scrimmaging. So I play a lot with them. So one of the benefits of this, and I'll answer your question in a second. One of the benefits of that season was I got to play Jimmy Hennessy every day.
Right.
And that was much different than what I experienced at Holy Family, where you're dealing with some numbers and it was hard to kind of gather that and some talent and some challenges. But with Jimmy every day, it was a challenge, and so I benefited from that greatly. I hope he did too. I never had that discussion with him as far as I hope I helped him. So those guys graduate. The 2 that were bench players, they graduate. So I would say there was 9 of us. And 7 of them leave, so they graduate. And there's only me and Steve Lombardo that are left from that state tournament team. So everybody that's a junior playing junior varsity and sitting varsity, splitting their time, they start getting varsity minutes. And I thought we had some players on that team. We had some pretty good firepower that we could score. Steven Lombardo, who was our captain, broke his hand in the 3rd or 4th game.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had won those 4 games. He breaks his hand, Michael. We can't really defend anyone because we're not deep, as that school was always didn't have a lot of depth. So we finish 12-8, 2 games outside of the state tournament qualifications. But what's interesting about that was we won 4 in a row when Stephen was with us, and I think we won 4 or 5 in a row at the end of the season. And one of those wins, we beat New Bedford High School in double overtime at our place.
Ooh.
If we could have squeaked out 2 other wins, we would have dropped a division going to the state tournament. I think we could have done some damage. But we just, again, part of that issue is the same thing I ran into at Holy Family, where you had guys who were inexperienced, who had no varsity experience. So that fight wasn't really there. We could score a lot. We had a hard time defending. We weren't deep. So, my game had to change from being, coming off the bench and getting playing time in 78, where now I'm starting, the ball's in my hands all the time. I had to be careful. I can't play real aggressive because I can't get fouls. I can't foul out. I can't. So my game changed. It went from I can penetrate as a sophomore. My junior year, I become more of a perimeter player. Steven gets hurt. So it just sort of spiraled out of control. But there are some things there that existed that I had a hard time with, and some of those, that peer pressure, some of that press back to me from that group fell at my feet. And that was hard for me to deal with and hard for me to understand. And I go into depth in that in the book as far as what that looked like and what I was feeling and what I heard and what I saw.
That had to be a traumatic experience for sure. Absolutely.
It was very difficult because I thought, kind of take my talent and sort of parlay that with them and strategize with that. But I saw some things, I wrote in the book that there were a couple of instances during a summer league where, one of the fathers comes after me, wants to fight me over a decision I made. And so that got to be weird. But that's this thing that exists, right? When you're a young kid and you're a young player and this is your last shot. You're a senior, you don't have another window. I still had another year to go. And again, I'm not playing it that way, but that's what happened. And so there were some real difficult times that came out of that for me.
So what transpired after that?
Well, my senior year, right? So go into my senior year, which is 1980. I'm captain of that team. I have some issues that's the summer prior to where I ended up with a back injury. And that follows me all the way through my senior year with just getting treatment. My father found a chiropractor, which was great because it helped me. Nothing else was helping. And I run into some other anxiety issues, which are really coming from, I hadn't chosen a school yet. I hadn't chosen a college yet for various reasons. And that was difficult on me as I kind of worked this out through the book, that I expected coming into my senior already to have chosen a school, and I wasn't there yet. And not for lack of trying, not for lack of attention, that's for sure. But it took until like halfway through the season for that to happen. So I'm going through a whole lot. I'm going through a whole lot with anxiety. I'm going through a whole lot with expectations. I have a back injury, which again, I'm dealing with on a weekly basis. So I'm not really right for a good portion of that season. There is a stretch of that season, as I wrote in the book, where, not to pat myself on the back, I'm really good. I'm there, and sort of what I expected. So yeah, we had a good year. My biggest thing, Michael, was I wanted that team to get into the tournament, and we do. We lose in the quarterfinals. I think we reached our ceiling as far as that goes, but we still had pieces that were still young. There was a core group of us that were seniors. So when we graduate, not a whole lot left. Sort of that's how that school had to respond as time went on, where you had a really good group in 78, you had an okay group in 79, we're okay in 80, but you keep having to reshuffle that deck every single year. And you only have so many students. You have only so much talent to deal with. So I think we reached our ceiling that year, and I was really, really happy that we got to the tournament. We proved ourselves that we belong there. We had some good wins. We pushed South Boston pretty hard. They pushed us pretty hard. We ended up losing in the end. But I was really proud of that team, and I was proud that I was able to captain that team and lead that team and get them there. That was a big deal for me. Again, not to pat myself on the back here, but I sacrificed a lot that season. There was a discussion I had with myself and my coach, which was, you have a decision to make. Do you want to lead the league in scoring? Do you want to lead the division in scoring? You can do that, but you're not going to go to the tournament. So that was a decision, and that was, for me, that was an easy decision because of the disappointment from the previous year. I really wanted that school, our team, our coach. Our coach was retiring at the end of the season. It was a big deal. It was a big deal for us. It was a big deal for me. I was glad I was able to kind of struggle my way through that and get and help us get there. And it wasn't just me because, Mark Lombardo was our leading scorer, great athlete. I think he was second or third leading scorer in the division. I sort of finished in the middle of the pack, which was fine. I had learned how to kind of manage that. So that was the big deal. That was the big thing as far as how I ended up my high school career with Fairhaven. There are some issues that come out of that where, Michael, when I was done, I was done. Yeah, I didn't have anything left after some of the stress I had gone through mentally and physically. One of the big things I missed out on was I missed out on the tryout for the Boston Shootout team that year.
Wow.
Which included a lot of my peers from the youth games team. That's Carl Hobbs, that's Gene Newborn, that's Bubba Raymond. Patrick Ewing was there. So I missed that. And I don't even recall knowing about it. But I think I had sort of given signals that I was done. And I couldn't push myself anymore. But it was, I've described it in the book where it was sort of like a switch went off. Like as soon as the season was over, I was done. And my anxiety stuff sort of evened out. My back injury sort of evens out. So psychologically, I was not in a good place.
Okay, now Mike. Okay, you end up hurting your back. You came through in the second half of the year. You did make it to the tournament. You were disappointed, but maybe you didn't know about the Boston Shootout. What a great team that was, by the way.
Yeah.
And now here's a good question, because my senior year, I didn't know where I wanted to go. I wasn't recruited. I didn't know where I wanted to go. Did I want to play? Did I want to be fitting for academics? I had an angel, and that angel happened to be Mickey Gonzalez, who was at Boston State, and he was at Framingham State. And he then took me under his wing, thank God. And with me came Tony DePina and Brian Hauser, and we had quite a bunch that came to Framingham State. So I knew where I was going. Now the reason why I bring that up, now you're a high school senior. What do you want to continue your playing career? Do you want to just go for academics? And did you have an angel like I had?
I don't think I had any angel, right? So I'll try to explain it this way. My father had said to me years before my senior year that if you're good enough, coaches will find you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm playing all over the place for a bunch of years in different tournaments and different games. And, Billy Shea was part of that stuff. One of the things, Michael, was my senior year and my junior year, there were pickup games at Connolly like every Tuesday night. And I would be there every Tuesday night to play in their gym. So that was just another thing to go play. Let me just back up even further. 5-Star gave me opportunities in front of coaches. So there's some things I mentioned in the book as far as there's the Iona situation with Jim Valvano. There's a situation with North Carolina, which was a little bit out of my range as far as being a player. But the Bryant College, the Stonehills, the Springfield colleges, Springfield College saw me, Michael, in the state finals. We were playing up at Worcester Polytech. My head coach, Mr. Wayne Wilson, knew the head coach at Springfield and had said to him, I really love him. I'm going to keep him in mind. I'm a sophomore. Stonehill College, Kevin Dunn, who had been the assistant coach over at SMU, was the assistant coach over at Stonehill. The Stonehill head coach had been the head coach at Bryant. So I had gone to visit them. Was it Billy Zolgo was there?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mikey Fields was there. They had a crew there.
Yeah. So Billy McMullen from Bishop Stang was there at the time. So I had gone to visit, and so there was interest there. So I'm a junior when that happens. So the Bryant thing comes out of some guy saw me playing in a tournament with Jim Tavares. He was friendly with the head coach at Bryant. He knew that Bryant was looking for a point guard. My name came up 5 times. And how I know this is because when I was at Fairhaven playing in the state tournament, after one of those games, I wrote it in the book. I hear someone call me as I'm leaving the gym that night, calls my name, comes over, introduces himself, and tells me that story. I was like, wow, I didn't know that. So that came out of just playing someplace, somebody noticed me. This guy said, yeah, I saw you play 3 times. I'm like, you saw me play 3 times. Where did you see me play 3 times? But that's what he said. So that's where that recruitment came from. And that sort of hit the high speed lane right away once it happened. One, because of, yes, academics, because of his reputation as a business school. It was playing in the, I forgot the conference it was playing in, but there was a brand new conference they were playing in that was Springfield, Stonehill, AIC, Assumption. Tough schedule. Lots of competition. That school, Bryant, when I was a senior, I think were ranked in the top 10 for a while, had gone as high as top 4. So that appealed to me. So it was sort of mixed as far as what I was looking for as far as, yes, I did want to play in college, Mike. I did. Academically, that was important too, as far as what that school looked like. So if there's really no angel, I think it just comes about from just different circumstances that I put myself in, that my father had leveraged for me to go play in these places and to be seen. Because as he said, you never know. Go play hard wherever you are. You may not play well, just play hard wherever you are. And that's what happened. So it's just by happenstance that recruitment happened. Michael, the head coach for Bryant, shows up at our game against Dartmouth High School at our place. And I'm and I'm heading for the showers, and someone calls me and says, someone wants to talk to you. And it's the head coach for Bryant standing in the middle of our locker room. So that's how it started.
Oh.
And it hit the high speed lane pretty quickly, because I think by spring of that same year, obviously, I'm signing a letter of intent to go.
That's incredible. Now, once you decide to go to Bryant, if I recall, you had an outstanding ball player that was on that particular team. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so again, that team the previous year when I was a senior in high school, really, really talented group of players. The player you're speaking of was Ernie DeWitt, who was from Newport, Rhode Island, was an All-American, got drafted after his senior year to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Ernie was an odd player, not weird, he was an odd player. 6'4", long arms, big hands, plays inside, right? Plays 10 feet from the basket, and nobody can stop him. Nobody can stop him. So he's playing out of position at that point. He probably should be a forward, but he's inside on the block, inside, blocking shots, rebounding. It was just a really tough player. One of the things I learned from Ernie pretty quickly was how to be a college player, how to take care of yourself, how to take care of your body, how to practice, paying attention to certain things, learning how to let things kind of roll, not to get involved with some drama, even though I do at different times, and I didn't learn as quickly as I should have. But Ernie was a really good college player. Sort of reminded me, and I didn't have any exposure to this, but of sort of what it looked like would probably a pro player would look like. Sort of that behavior and that mentality as far as knew how to get through the process, knew when to push himself, knew when to kind of back off, knew how to take care of himself. So I followed that. I paid attention to that because I thought, well, it's a pretty good example. He's an All-American, so I should pay attention. Now,
before we go any further, now you're going from high school, now you're going to a Division II school.
Yeah.
At that time, I think it was.
Yes, it was.
What was the difference? How was the game different? Obviously, because the talent of it, but I mean, how did you feel going from high school where you are the number one and you're going to college where you're just like everybody else?
One of the things that I had the opportunity to partake in was the summer before I go to Bryant, Michael. The head coach for Bryant I received an invitation to play in some pickup games in a high school outside of Providence, Rhode Island. And who was there was Bruce Campbell from Providence College. Billy Eason was there, and a bunch of Bryant alumni. So they were playing a couple of nights a week, just pick up. Michael, Bruce Campbell's 6'8", handling the ball like me, right? Left-handed, just a big body. So to answer your question directly, that was the difference, was getting used to size that could play, right? We had size around southeastern Massachusetts, but some guys couldn't play, right? They were just big. But Bruce Campbell was an All-American. He gets some weird things that go on with him when he gets drafted, but could really play. Could really, really play. So I had to get used to that. Spaces I could move in weren't there anymore. Spaces to pass the ball all of a sudden are smaller. So you have to now, your passes have to be really crisp, really on target. You have to be more efficient. So that's what I learned in that group. So when I go to Bryant, we're playing pickup before the season. I have to, again, get used to different talent because we had, Ernie 6'4". We had a guy on our team who was 6'8". So just a big person, right? So you have to get used to that. And guys are much more physical, right? The play is much more physical. You really, I was much more of a finesse guard. I used my quickness. I could get by people in space. So I had to figure out that space. How much space do I need now? How quickly do I need to go? I had to really learn. One of the things I had to learn, Michael, was have the ability to change speeds. I couldn't go fast all the time. I had to really kind of fake guys more, and then being able to have enough strength, enough stamina to pull that off. So it was that kind of change where it was not very dramatic, but I sort of realized it during the summer. That was like my learning curve. When I went to Bryant and we're playing pickup and we start to practice, I sort of knew this, right? That everybody's going to be bigger than me. Our point guards were 5'10", 5'11". There was three of us. So I had to learn that. I still thought my talent was better. I was much more well-rounded than the point guards that were there. And one of them had been there for a couple of years. So Bobby Mahan, who was from New Jersey, a really tough guard, right? Handle the ball, get on you on defense and just, kind of to out physical you. But I had enough talent. I had enough skill that I could go around that. Plus, I could shoot it. Those guards couldn't. So I brought that to that team where teams couldn't sag inside on Ernie as much. If I was going to get playing time, I could kind of open that up And I was able to do those kinds of things, especially the next year where our coach actually for a while played me at the 2. It's like, okay, I can handle that. I'm good enough. I can, Michael, not for nothing, but if we had shooting contests in practice, I won every single one. because technically I was really good, right? I had practiced enough. I had been taught well enough. Again, I'm not patting myself on the back and bragging, but that's what I brought. I brought something that I was a really good all-around guard. Michael, that goes back to Holy Family, right? Just learning all that stuff, how to pass inside, how to play defense, not turn the ball over. I've become very proficient through the years. And that's how I got recruited. That's what I don't think anything else was. I was just a really good all-around guard.
Okay, so now your freshman year, how did that turn out? How did that go?
We were okay. I got some spotty playing time that year. We were okay. We didn't qualify for the tournament. We lost in our conference tournament, I think, in the finals to Springfield. Springfield had Buddy Clark, who was another All-American. So there was a bunch of so we'll go back to one thing here. Stonehill had 2 kids from Bishop Hendricken, and the Hendricken team had 2 losses. Yeah, Reitz and Fiore. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, Reitz All-American gets drafted by the Celtics. So that's the quality of play that was there. Mike Borden was there, Michael Borden was the AIC.
Yes, absolutely.
So, you're dealing with really good players, right? So I dealt with those guys for a couple of years until I graduated. Yeah. So we were okay my freshman year. We were fair my sophomore year. And what ended up happening, Michael, was within the first month that I was at Bryant, the academic standards changed at the school. So you weren't going to recruit guys who were going to be treading the line academically.
Right.
That was tough. We just could not recruit guys. So my class was the last class that came in with whatever the grade average percentage was. Mm-hmm. And so now you're dealing with stuff like, okay, who are we going to recruit? We became average really, really quick. My junior year, we qualified. We went 3rd round in our tournament. We had to win our last 4 or 5 games to get in, and we did that. So just to back up, we've talked about this a little bit, and it's in the book, in the prologue, about me injuring my foot on just a play, right? No contact, just a play. And I've quoted before that I still deal with that foot now. It was not treated as well as it should have been treated. It was probably a break. It was treated like a really bad sprain. And there was some issues around treatment. There was issues around being sort of rushed back to a certain extent. I was able to play with it. I was able to kind of figure my way around it and be able to play. And I played okay. But that's sort of where my ceiling was for the rest of my time at Bryant, where I thought maybe I could play in Europe. I thought I could be a pro there because I didn't think physically my talent, I hadn't reached my ceiling, but physically I was starting to break down. And that injury with my foot goes back to the back injury I had when I was in high school, right? There was something there that was not allowing the right nerve function in my legs. I was starting to have sprained ankles over nothing. And
now, nothing about surgery? No surgery at all?
No, we weren't. That wasn't something we talked about back then. That wasn't something you normally did. Michael, my back injury gets diagnosed from a chiropractor. I had gone to 3 or 4 different doctors. Nobody could figure out what was going on. So I go to a chiropractor. He fixes it, but I still deal with it. I still have issues all the way through that. So this is my senior year in high school. So that injury caused some instability in my lower part of my body, unbeknownst to anybody. So that's sort of where my college career ends and how it wraps up. Disappointing for me because I thought, if I play well, I can do this. Maybe I get a tryout to go to Europe. There were some things with Athletes in Action that came about, but I'm physically not able to do it.
How was that? How did that make you feel? Because you put your heart and soul, and I know how dedicated you must have been, and your commitment, and then to find out that your body just wasn't holding up. How did that make you feel?
I'll answer it this way, Michael, and I have it in the book. There was a time when I was in college where I was trying to figure out how not to play and keep my scholarship.
Wow.
Which if you had told me that as a freshman in high school, I would have told you you're crazy. I would never think like that. But I was pretty messed up at that time, and I'm still trying to figure out how to play. I'm still trying to figure out how to contribute. And yeah, I never saw the injury coming. I never saw the injury as far as what it would do and how it would heal and how I would respond emotionally. That was just a really hard thing. I'm still getting time. I'm still playing. I can still contribute, but in the back of my mind, I'm pretty upset that this has happened. And it felt like this thing where not inevitable, but it sort of felt like that, like this momentum kind of getting me there. And all of a sudden that happened. And again, Michael, it's a non-play, right? Play I've done 1,000 times. You've done the same play. And my foot just crumbled. It just buckled.
Wow.
So it was hard.
That had to be devastating. Okay, so did you end up playing 4 years at Brown?
Yeah. Yes. Struggled all my way through.
Okay, so at least you got your scholarship. You kept your scholarship.
Yes.
But now, after college, where was your mind? Where was your mindset after that? After college, where you going? I know you're already into the academics. We already know that. But as far as you considering playing overseas or playing,
I sort of shut. I remember, Michael, when all that happened and basketball's done and all that stuff. I remember thinking, okay, so really, who am I? Because there's a group of people in my life that know me as an athlete, basketball player. And then there are some people who don't know anything, but sort of my identity's latched to that, right? That legacy that was there all the way back to junior high school, all the way back to playing in a little league and in a Acushnet. That's how I saw myself. And it took me a long time to kind of overcome that, to figure out, what am I going to do? Really, who am I? And that was really hard because I don't express that either, as I talked about in the book, that trying to figure that out and trying to figure out, it's even hard for me to say now, Michael, is just that, how do you see who you are, right? When you're going through this, you've been this person for a long time, you've done these things, so you step away and now you have to try to figure out, okay, how do people see me? And Michael, people still come to me over some period of time and some number of years, like, are you still playing? And I was like, and I would feel sad inside because I'm like, yeah, that's how they still see me.
Yeah, exactly. I hear you.
Very, if I go to, so just for an example, if I go to reunions, for the early reunions, 5-10 years, that would come up. And it was sort of like a raw nerve for me for a little while, but then it became humorous. Like, no, I don't play anymore. Now and again, may pick up a ball if I'm around someone that's doing something, but no, I don't play anymore. And it's kind of bittersweet when that would come up. Because I always, part of the book was how people saw me, right? And again, not to make more of this than what's in the book, but how people saw me, and now that's gone. And how do you reintroduce yourself to someone where that may not be appropriate? They may not be interested because, again, they saw me as this person doing this thing. And that was sort of the first question that came out of their mouth. It's like, nice to see you. You still play? Like, no. Because, again, you start to you're a young adult, right? You're trying to, again, find your way, create other relationships, create another path. So I felt like I kept on being tugged back to that over time. I don't write that in the book, but that's what it felt like. It was just really weird. And you may have experienced that too, right? When you had that sort of identity from an area with certain teams, certain people you're associated with, you had that same conversation, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, before we get into the great book, What I wanted to do is ask you one more thing before we get into the book. Is do you? I know the answer, but I mean for the viewers, do you ever think about what could have been?
I do, but I don't stress on that. Right? I don't stress on it at all. There are some what ifs in my head, and some of the what ifs, Michael, don't have anything to do with the end. It has to do with certain things that had gone on where, after the 78 season with Fairhaven, you and I've talked about this, right? That there was some discussion that I'm transferring. I might be going to play in the City League. I might be going to play in the Catholic League. Because one of the things that my dad and I did, and this was really coming from my dad, was always looking ahead, always trying to climb the ladder. So sort of peaked with Fairhaven in the tournament. What else are you going to do with that community and that team and that school? There's only so many resources that you can plug away at. So there was some really, really strong discussions at that point. So that's a what if. There's a what if going into my senior year of high school of potentially going to Tabor Academy. So there are those things. Those are the what ifs. What happens there? So, and again, I know my wife is listening to all of this. Michael, any of those what ifs happen, I never meet her.
There you go. There you go.
So ultimately, story sort of intertwines with that. I think I may have shared this with you. I shared that story with Mr. Nebriga. I said, if you don't retire and I don't transfer, I don't meet her. There's no reason why we would ever meet. We would never cross paths, but we do because I stay.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So
Mike,
it's not a what if.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. No, that's probably the biggest what if. What if that doesn't happen?
Now, Mike, we could talk for 10 hours. You and I can do that very easily, but we don't have much time. But I want to do is, folks, you need to check out this book, Courts of Reflection. I couldn't put the book down. It is so worth reading. It's a must read. You guys, we're going to talk about that. Now, you and I have, we conversed, and this was prior to you even thinking about writing the book, if I recall. But then you told me you were thinking about writing a memoir. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, okay, that's nice. I had no idea it was going to be like this. I had no idea it was going to be like, and I couldn't put it down. I'm so proud of you what you did. Now, the viewers, let the people know, first of all, what made you decide I'm going to write a memoir? Now I'm thinking it's going to be small. It's going to be, and then boom. What made you decide, first of all, should I? And then how, who, what, where, when, and how? Let the people know.
So, the reason why is that, just like you, Michael, right? I'm gonna throw something back to you. The Julius Erving story you have about you playing one-on-one with him and how important that is to you.
Oh, right? My goodness. Thanks to your dad.
Right. So just like that story, I have my stories, right? I have stories that are important to me. And I thought, let's get it down on paper, because I had been teased enough over the years about having a really good memory. You should write a book. So I started to. And I started writing it just basketball stories. And it wasn't very fulfilling for me. I could go for 1,000, 2,000 pages just on basketball stories. I'm like, who's going to like that? Michael Consational might like that, but I'm not sure. So then it changed, right? I had shared some things with my wife over the last probably 10 or 15 years, Michael, that nobody knew. And I've mentioned that to you. Nobody knew that story. So when I started to shift away from that and try to really come up with things where, sort of at the core of this is that looking at what happens with people that are successful and what happens behind the scenes with that. So I started to go down that path. And some of the stuff that you've read, I never wrote about, I never spoke about except to her. And to put it on paper, Michael, and see it in front of me was startling. And I danced around it. I wrote around all this stuff. I had most of that book written in a couple of years, and I kept on refining it, and I stayed away from the really hard stuff. And my wife just said to me, Michael, just write it. Just put it down and write it, and we'll see what it looks like.
Right.
And Michael, one of the weird things of writing this book and taking as long as it took was I had to revisit that all the time. I had to make sure, the technical stuff, the grammar stuff was okay, but I have to revisit that all the time.
Yes,
And
exactly.
some of those days it was really difficult to do, and trying to make sure that it's right. Technically, it's good. It makes sense. Michael, I can't tell you how many times I've asked my wife, do I sound crazy with this? And she's like, no. She's like, no, this is your story. It's a good story.
Yes.
So when I was hesitating a lot, Michael, this took 5 years, right? 5 years to get done and get it out. And
wow.
I put myself in this position, and as I was going through this, I never thought, well, I'm not going to do it. I just didn't realize how difficult it was technically, all this other stuff that needed to be done to get it out. And I'm not sure I'm answering your questions on these things, but I'll try to just express one thing here. Michael, when the book goes out and it gets launched, and I've shared some things with you about people's responses to me.
Yes.
It's been very interesting that because I opened up, people have opened up to me. And maybe not so much about themselves, maybe about a nephew, a grandson, something, right? And I never saw that coming. My wife did. I didn't. I never saw that. So what ends up happening with this on the literature side, Michael, is it's no longer my story. It's not mine anymore because people see themselves in this that I hadn't expected. It's their story now. I hear from their perspective, which is just, it's great. I never expected it. Nobody prepared me for it. But on a daily basis, Michael, I'm hearing from a couple of people that have read it and how it aligns with something. They see themselves. Michael, I've had a couple of people who have bought the book for a grandson again. They bought it for themselves, bought the book for their grandson, left it for their nephew to read. I was like, what is going on here? But that's what's gone on. That's what's going on behind the scenes of what's going on in my life as far as when that book gets launched. My wife is experienced in this too because she's hearing from people also. So it's just, it shakes me every day.
You know something, Mike? Again, folks, you got to get this book. You will not put it down. It is, and Courts of Reflection. When you read this, you can't help but reflect on yourself. And I think it's so much good that this book is going to be given to so many people because you get a chance to see inside yourself. And the book is phenomenal. And for the folks, Mike, who might not know Courts of Reflection, what does that really mean? Why did you come up with the title of this book? And let the viewers know how they can get a hold of your book, how to get in touch with you. And, we only got a few minutes, so you have to come back and do part 2. But for now, just please let the viewers know about this fantastic book.
So the title comes from my reflections, right? My reflections on my life as a young athlete having success at a very young age. So it's that reflection, right? So it's a reflection. You see the reflection of the basketball on the court. You see it. That's where it comes from, my reflections. Where people can buy this, it's on Amazon. You can find it. I'll supply some links to you and Key so you can put those out. So it's on Amazon, the hardcover, softcover, the ebook is out there. It's on every electronic site throughout the world. It's in.
Hold up, say it again. Say that one more time.
It's on every site you can purchase the book from throughout the world.
You hear that, folks? Throughout the world.
So there's on every continent that's out there. I was stunned when I saw this all over the world as far as what was taking place. So it's everywhere. How people can get in touch with me through Facebook, Instagram, spending a lot of time on Instagram and different chat groups as far as trying to promote my book and promote my endeavors here. So you can find me there under Michael K. Semiao. Same thing with Facebook, Michael K. Semiao. I have a Substack thread that I've been creating, which I think will be part of my next release, probably this summer, which are stories, Michael, off of the book that I've been able to write that I had sitting, and other things I wanted to create ongoing now. I think I've shared some of that stuff with you. So that's there. Another book in another year or so it's going to come from this book also as far as a follow-up. I have an audio book that I'm trying to do, which I'm going to do myself, because one of our conversations, somebody jumped in at the end of the podcast and said, is there going to be an audio book? And I said, yeah, I had a contract. Well, that sort of went away. I can look over here. I have the components to do it myself. I just have to find some time and practice reading the entire book into a device and get it done. So that's coming. New book coming, a second book coming, probably an ebook from the Substack threads. Maybe screenplay I can write. Maybe.
Oh.
We'll see.
Now, Mike, people who are watching and they ask you, Mike, what do you think I'll get out of reading this book? What should I come after reading this book? What should I come away with?
You'll come away with how a young person had success, who struggled with trying to deal with that. And Michael ultimately failed with that, right? I don't succeed there, right? I succeed on the basketball court, but a lot of that's what's surrounding it is that I fail. And just a young person trying to walk through that and trying to actually, not to sound diplomatic here, but to be present, right? To try to figure out how to get through that. And where I think people could see themselves in this book is seeing that struggle, because everybody has their stuff, right? Everybody has something that you might see yourself here. Maybe not as a young person, but maybe professionally you're dealing with something that is frustrating, and sort of the outlets I had to kind of deal with those things, which were virtually athletic. They weren't emotional because I was struggling with that stuff. But I think that's where people can see themselves. There's a story here. There's some success here. There is a person who fights their way through this stuff and has a life that is, for not parsing words, they're problematic for a time. But I think that's where people see themselves. They have issues. One story, I'm not going to name names here. Michael, when the book goes out, and I had gone through a pre-order phase, and I got some books out early to people, within 24 hours, I heard from someone that I played against. And this person shared their story with me, similar to mine, but I didn't know that. So this is that going back to this whole thing of I shared, they shared. And again, I don't know people have things, Michael, have stuff. I'm not that close to people to know these things, these intimate things, but people felt very open to do that. So I think that's what people will see. And that's why I think people will be attracted to the story, where they'll see themselves and say, yeah, I went through this. I went through this in a different way. Maybe it's not athletics, maybe it's academically, maybe it's professionally. And so what ultimately comes out about this is you're not alone. Right? You're just not alone with these things, because it happens. Oddly for me, it feels like a large percent of the people that I have contact with have their own stuff that they're working with. So that's kind of where I position myself is you're not alone.
Something like this is, what I got from this book when I started reading it? I've been doing the show for a minute, and I've had quite a few guests. And one of the biggest things that I find out right now that's going big time in the universities and the high schools is the mental health part of it. Yeah. And when I look at this book and I read it, and I think back Now, you were doing this back in the day when I guess it wasn't cool to go through all that stuff because you wanted to be, tough guy. You want to, you don't want the world to see what you're really going through. Right. Now it's so important that it's going around in colleges and high schools and, for the youth. We talked about the ride home. We're not going to get a chance to talk about that. But next time you come in, we're going to talk about that. So to me, folks, you want to learn about yourself, because he says things that anyone can relate to. I mean, it's just a great read. I'm not completely done with it yet, but I'm getting there. And all I can tell you, man, I'm so proud of what you're doing. And, you're welcome to come on anytime, any place, anywhere. And again, I want to thank you. I'm so damn proud of you. And before we close, is there anything else you want to say to the viewers? Anything else you want? If there's anything maybe I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about, or maybe you wanted to, express any of your feelings at the present time?
No, I think you covered everything, Michael. What I do want to say is I wanted to thank you, right? Thank you for being my friend, being a supporter of mine, hanging in there with me after I walked away from your podcast when we were doing them together, and you understood what I was trying to do. So I very much appreciate that.
Yes.
Have me on for a third time as we kind of work through these things. So I'm happy that we're friends. I'm happy that you had me on again. I'm happy you're a supporter of mine, and I try to support you as we go. So that's really how I wanted to end the conversation. So thanks for your support, and so thank you for being my friend.
Well, Mike, good luck with the book. You're always welcome. I'm going to have to probably do, I guess it'll be part 4. This is number 3. I guess it'll be part 4. Mike, I want to thank you for coming on my show. Thanks, God bless you. Folks, again, check out his new memoir book, Courts of Reflection. I'm telling you guys, you won't be able to put it down. Again, Mike, thank you for coming on my show. God bless and take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Ooh.